Hi everyone, I am here with my friend Courtney Iventosch, and she is a Broadway performer. So Courtney, why don't you just say hello to everyone and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney, and I am currently with my family in Austin, Texas. But normally, I live in New York City, and I perform with the Broadway company of Wicked. Um, and so normally I'm there, but I'm from Northern California, and I was actually born in Oakland, but raised a little up the hill in Colfax. Where I kind of began my dancing journey before college, where I went to San Jose State in the Bay Area. Um, and yeah, so that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Awesome, thank you. So our first question is from Liza, and she is asking, how did you, um, how old were you when you started doing theater, and when did you know that that was what you wanted to pursue?
Great question. Hi, Liza. Um, I was um, young when I started dancing. Um, I My mom actually put me in ballet when I was 4, but that didn't really last very long. So then when I was 8, we started with tap, and that really got me going. I loved it so much, and I've been dancing ever since then. So really, from the day I started, I always knew I wanted to keep it a part of my life. I didn't know exactly what that meant, because I didn't know, what all that would entail, but I always wanted to dance. Um, and then in college was actually when I kind of discovered musical theater in its fullest form. I dabbled in it as a kid. And I kind of did all of the pieces separately. I was in band, I was in choir, I took some voice lessons, I took some acting, but none of it like together until college. And I did, I went to San Jose State, and I was part of an awesome company called Company One, run by Janie Scott, who's our professor, also a former Broadway performer, and she directs and choreographs all over the Bay. And she really kind of sparked my interest in musical theater as a full art form. So that's really when I kind of caught the bug, so to speak.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So you grew up in California, in like Northern California area. So uh what made you move to New York? What was the
Yeah,
deciding
great,
factor? What, yeah.
great question. Um, yes. Being from a very small town in California, it was not really in my nature. To be honest, it's still really not, to live like in a great big city with lots of people. Um, while I was in college, I took voice lessons with a great teacher named Izetta Fang, and she encouraged me to go to this intensive in Florida called the Broadway Theater Project. And so I auditioned, and I ended up doing that. So 3-week intensive. And that was the summer of 2009. So I had graduated from college. And at that intensive, I met some casting directors and auditioned for them. And they were like, come up to New York and audition for a chorus line and White Christmas for the national tour and Broadway companies. And I was like, oh, okay. So went back to California after the intensive, and I planned a trip. And this trip, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to these auditions. I'm going to stay with one of my best friends, Dasha, who had already moved there at the time. And I was like, I'm just going to try it out, kind of figure out New York, see what it's all about. So I did. I went, and I ended up staying for several weeks with my friend on her couch. And those 2 auditions that I initially went to went terribly. I just bombed them. But I went to some other things and kind of was like, well, I'll go to this and that. And I ended up getting a show at the Maltz Jupiter Theater back in Florida, called La Cage aux Folles. And so I ended up getting that contract. And through that, I ended up getting my union card. So I did that show, and then I went back to California, and I kind of regrouped, and then I was like, okay, I think now I can actually move to New York and like try this. So then in the in February of 2010, I actually like bought a one-way ticket, packed my bags, and went on my way. So that was kind of my, journey.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome though. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, New York is such a jump it's so different than California.
It's so different. It's just a different animal, and it's I mean, the whole East Coast is kind of its own vibe, I think. And so it's a lot of adjusting to, different differences all around.
Yeah. So I have our next question is from Natalie, and she wanted to know how your Broadway career started, and kind of hand in hand with that question, Joelle asked what the Broadway audition process is like.
Yes, excellent. Hi, girls. I love those questions. So Broadway, I'll start with the Broadway audition process. And that's a great question. They're all very different. For Wicked, which is the show I'm currently doing, I actually ended up auditioning for that through the national tour kind of route. So that was actually in the summer of 2010. I went to what's called an open call, and so they're kind of different audition routes. You can kind of go to a singer call or a dancer call, and normally you're going to end up doing some crossover at some point in the audition process, hopefully. So I went to a dance call and ended up going back a couple days later, and we kind of had a big group of us, and we just went through a process that was probably 5 or 6 hours, and we danced, and then they made a cut, and then we danced again, and they made a cut, and we did some partnering, and we sang, we did some other stuff, and so it was kind of just a full day of kind of doing all these different things so they could see what our skills were. And that was it was particularly intense, that audition, because I was going in for a swing. And you guys probably know what a swing is, but in case you don't, it's someone who covers a bunch of different roles in a show. Generally, it's an off-stage track. So it's you're not necessarily in the show every night, but you're always there and ready. And oftentimes you're in the show doing different parts. So if someone is sick or injured or on vacation, you kind of bounce around. So because of that, there were a lot of elements that needed to be kind of checked off. So that's why it was kind of longer. But that was kind of the process for that. And then I ended up finding out actually while I was still in the building. So that was a kind of quick, they needed someone really fast. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you wait for weeks or months or, however long. So that's kind of one of the ways the process can go. But I have a lot of castmates who've gone in for Wicked up to, I've heard, 14 times before they book it. So it's kind of a lesson in resilience and determination and just keep going. And of course, a lot of rejection, which is hard, but it's part of it. So, so that's kind of the Broadway audition process, particularly going in as a dancer to a dance call. And then what was the other part of the question?
The other one was how did your Broadway career start?
Oh, right. Great question. So that was actually how I got the tour of Wicked 10 years ago-ish. My actual Broadway career started with Something Rotten. So I did that show, and again, I was a swing. So that was in 2015. And so I auditioned for that kind of in a similar fashion, went to a tap call, and then went back a couple days later, and we kind of did a similar process of dancing and singing and some more dancing. And then I found out that I got that, which would be starting, I auditioned in like December of 2014, and then we started rehearsals in February of the following year. So that was my kind of entry into Broadway. And then after I was with that company for about a year and a half, And then I transitioned back to Wicked, but in the Broadway company there, a track opened up that I was right for, so kind of switched. So that was sort of how my path began.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were talking a lot about just being a swing in different shows. What are the challenges and how do you prepare for all those different tracks that you can be switching between?
Totally, such a good question. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of organizing and a lot of practice. People have different kind of methods of doing it, different swings that I've worked with or seen or heard about. For me, I just had a binder of a lot of notes. And I had like each of my tracks in there. We call each person in a show, we call that a track. And so you kind of have, in Wicked, I covered 9 different tracks. In Something Rotten, I covered 6. So I had kind of my book of all of my different tracks with like written out notes that I had written so it would make sense to me. Most of it had shorthand, you kind of figure out your own thing. So I had that, and then I also had like diagrams, which are very helpful when swinging because you can kind of look at the big picture and see where you're slotting in. And then actually, when I did Something Rotten, I videoed a lot. So by that point, that was kind of more acceptable. So in rehearsals and even during the shows in rehearsals in the theater, once we moved into the theater, I would just film everything so I could go back and kind of dissect it later if I needed to. So that was kind of for me how I kind of like organized it, and just being diligent about reviewing. And if I wasn't in the show, I was often watching or doing the show off stage in a particular track just to kind of remind myself. So a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to keep in your brain. So
Yes, a lot of information to kind of have roaming around it there.
yeah, I remember when I was there and they would switch, put swings in, and I'd be walking backstage, like give you guys your notes, and they had their binders, and everyone's like,
yep, just
okay.
like flipping through. Yeah. And now, as technology improves, now a lot of people just carry their phone, on silent, of course, or airplane mode, but they have like their notes just on there so that they can just kind of flip through and, which is great. So everybody kind of has their own system.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your system and how you keep it all organized. We have our next question from Allie, and her question is, what do you do to prepare each night for a Broadway performance?
That's a great question. Hi, Allie. My preparation, everyone kind of has their own way of doing things. For me, it depends on the show. So in Wicked, I always do a vocal warm-up at home, just to kind of make sure everything is ready and good to go. And also in case of going on, I understudy Nessa Rose, and I've actually a few times gone on right before the show started. I've gone on, or actually partway through the show I've gone on. So I just like to make sure that like that's ready to go, and also for my normal track. So I do that, and then I normally do kind of sort of yoga-based physical warm-up, which sometimes I'll do at home, sometimes I'll do it at the theater. It kind of varies. And then at the theater, is where I get my makeup and my hair ready. And we're actually really lucky in this show. It's very minimal. We pin curl our hair because we all are wigged. So, we do the like this and kind of press it to your head. And so that takes me 5-ish minutes. And then makeup is very simple. So that's another 5 to 10. And then we have to put our undergarments on, and then we have to put our microphone on. And I always, part of my routine is at the 5-minute call, I go to the bathroom, I brush my teeth, I go to the bathroom so that I'm like ready to go. So that's kind of my like, I don't know, order of doing things. And on the way back from the bathroom, I put on my hat that I wear in the opening. So I've got that, and then I like put my coat on and my boots and all that. So that's kind of just how I've kind of fallen into that pattern. But yeah, that's kind of my pre-show ritual, give or take.
Yeah, I know everyone has their certain things that they like have to do to make sure that everything is ready and they feel good and confident. And
exactly. It's like everyone kind of figures out their thing and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And, and it's great. It's great. And I also we're required to be at the show a half hour before it begins, which is really not very much time. Most of us get there a little before that, but it's also kind of our time. There are 13 or 14 of us in our dressing room, and it's nice because that's kind of our bonding time, and we always talk about our days and, or tell funny stories or whatever. So that's kind of a nice time too to have, with the girls.
Yeah. The dressing room is always very fun. There was always a lot of fun stuff happening when I would have to go in there. So
it's so true. Always some sort of silly shenanigan.
Yeah. I have another question for you from Michaela, and her question is, what are the biggest challenges of being on Broadway and also the biggest rewards?
Excellent question. Hi, Michaela. The biggest challenges, I would say, I'm going to go with rewards first. So it's an amazing thing to be able to do what we all love so much, in any kind of setting, and to be able to kind of make a living doing it is such a dream come true. So I think that the rewards are being able to really do what we love, on a daily basis, which is amazing. And it's in Wicked in particular is such a beautiful story, and it's really neat to be able to tell that story to people every night, and kind of see how children react and how older people react and respond. And it's kind of a show for everyone, in my opinion. And not every show is that way, and not every show is intended to be that way. But Wicked's kind of cool in that way because we do get to, kind of leave an impact, hopefully, on people. So I think that's really cool to see, and we also can see the first 10 rows or so. We can see faces. And it's really cool to see little kids in their front row just so excited. So that's really rewarding. And then, of course, there are challenges. For me, the biggest one is just being far away from my family. So I'm very much a family person, and so I'm taking this advantage of this time that we have right now, as much as I miss the normal sea of everything. I'm trying to find the silver lining, as everyone is. But yeah, that's my biggest challenge, is being away from my family. And one thing that I tell people is that it's interesting what we do because we work nights, weekends, and holidays. So anytime where a lot of people have time off to be with their families or friends or whatever, or travel, that's when we're generally working the most. So that presents its own challenges. And most of us haven't been home for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you may celebrate, in years. I haven't been with my family for 10 years probably. So that's hard too. That's a hardship for sure. But then there's the benefits and the rewards too. So it's definitely a balancing act. But that is an excellent question, because it isn't all, rainbows and butterflies. It's definitely, a little bit of each, which is, can be challenging.
Yeah. That December month was so busy. That was the month that I was there, and
yes, firsthand. Yeah, exactly. In December, it's always crazy. And you're trying to figure out gifts and family and whatever whilst doing that. So that's definitely hard.
Yeah, I think we did 15 shows in a row or something, because we didn't have
right.
that
Yes.
Monday off. I was like, what is this?
Yes.
This is crazy.
What is happening? Yeah, it's a bit crazy. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, but the rewards are so great. I took my fiance Jacob to see it when it was on the tour here a couple months ago, and he had never seen Wicked. I was like, you have to go. This is a part of my life. Like,
Yes, especially since you've been a part of it. That's so awesome. I'm glad he got to see it.
Yeah,
That's so fun.
he was in awe the whole time. So it
Oh,
was.
I love that. That's so fun. Yeah, it's a great show. It really is. It's a fun, especially the first time you see it, and you're like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
But it's great.
Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions and taking time out of your day to do this interview.
Absolutely. It's really my pleasure. I'm hopefully it can inspire or at least inform some of you, maybe if you're thinking of doing this or just want to keep it a part of your life,
Yeah. Do you have any last piece of advice that you'd want to share with the students?
I would say, if this is something you want to pursue in any capacity, whether professionally or just recreationally, however, I would say there's no reason you can't. And to keep taking advantage of opportunities you have, like working, doing things with Berkeley's company, and anything that comes around. Obviously now is a weird time, but once things resume, kind of get back to normal, take advantage of anything and everything you can do. If you play an instrument, if you juggle, if you, any like random skill you have, really just take advantage of it, keep honing it, and acrobatics, gymnastics, all of that stuff, especially because now theater is kind of becoming all encompassing. It's no longer just singing, dancing, and acting. It's like you have to rap, and you have to play an instrument, and you have to throw fire, and you have to it's all these things. So if you have any of those that you are inclined to learn about or that you already know, just keep at it, because it'll just kind of build your toolbox and let you kind of have more opportunity. So that's what I say.
That's great advice. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yay.
Well, thank you again. It was
You're
great
so
having
welcome.
you.
Thank you. You too. And I wish you all the best and stay safe and healthy and, happy during this odd time. But we'll be through it, hopefully sooner than later.